I will call to order the Monday, April 4th meeting of the Verona Plan Commission, and we will begin with the roll call, please. Mr. Sarah?
Alderman Ritt,
Here.
Commissioner Linder.
Here.
Commissioner Ritter is absent and will be here a little later. Mayor Hockemer.
Here.
Commissioner Horsfall.
Here.
Commissioner Lytle. I apologize. I'll learn it.
Either way, I'm here.
Okay. And Commissioner Heinzen.
Yes, I'm here.
We do have a quorum. We will proceed with that. Thank you, Adam. Next, we have minutes. The minutes of the February 4th meeting of the Plan Commission were included with your packet. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Ritt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Heinzen. Were there any additions or corrections to the minutes of the February 4th meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried and the minutes are approved. Agenda item number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding site plan review for PC name tag for a warehouse and office addition located at 124 Horizon Drive. Tonight we have an agenda where we have either site plan review or we have initial site plan review. None of these actions will need any recommendation to go to the council. It is a discussion here for this evening. So with that, Adam, do you want to start with agenda item number 4, please?
Yes. PC Name Tag is requesting a site plan approval to construct a warehouse and possible office addition in the future. The proposed additions are necessary because the business is growing. Most importantly for the applicant is the warehouse addition. They are in the process, or they have received a large order that they need to fill, and the warehouse is necessary in order to fill that order. The proposed warehouse addition will be approximately 8,000 square feet of total warehousing space, and the proposed office addition is approximately 3,800 square feet. Actually, this was before the Plan Commission in 2007. It came before initial review in 2007 for the warehouse addition. Due to the economy, it never came back. Now they're coming back for the formal and official approval for the project. Staff has reviewed the plans. From a bulk standpoint, it meets all the setbacks. We looked at the side, rear, front, and other side setbacks, and it conforms entirely to the zoning ordinance. They have already installed an existing a parking area right here. There are 9 parking stalls installed last year. Parking for the property is based upon number of employees. They currently have 52 employees. With the additions, they could possibly add 6 more, bringing it up to 58. The site itself has 60 total parking stalls, so they currently and any future expansion will meet the parking requirements of the zoning ordinance. A photometric plan was not submitted with the proposal. I've spoken with the applicant, and due to the small size of the 9 parking stalls, that's something that will work out before occupancy is granted for the site. It's a simple lighting addition, simple approval that, from a photometric standpoint, won't be difficult to accomplish. So that's one of the conditions of approval as we get to the end here. Landscaping. A landscaping plan was submitted, and actually in your packet there is a revised landscaping plan. This one on the screen is not the revised one. This is the one that was initially submitted. But what they've done to improve this, I guess, is they've added more landscaping here along Horizon Drive. They've also added landscaping in the rear of the property to match what is there already, and they've also added landscaping along this parking area to screen the parking from the street and to screen headlight glare to the adjacent property as well. Staff has no concerns with the landscaping plan. It meets the ordinance requirements and conforms to it. Drainage, the city engineer has already approved the erosion control and stormwater plan for the property. The office addition will drain to the north internally to the stormwater pond located here. The warehouse addition will most likely drain this direction. They are converting some existing downspouts and drains, so they will be internally tied into the system and run to the north to kind of balance it out, so no additional off-site no additional water will be draining off-site. So that has been approved already by the engineer. Looking at the architecture itself, this is for the warehouse addition, so if this part of it occurs by itself without the office, this is the look of the building. It will match what is out there already. Windows in the front of the project, you have windows on top for daylighting. Both the south and east elevations will be constructed with EIFS. The west elevation is a metal panel which matches what's existing out there. Looking to the west, that's a parking lot for an adjacent industrial area. The metal panel is appropriate in staff's mind because it matches what's out there, and the area to the west is not a high visibility area. If the office addition goes forward, it's once again will match what's out there. Windows, obviously they'll be screening the rooftop mechanicals here, similar to how they did over here as well. Staff has no concerns with the architecture as it matches what's out there, and based upon that, staff recommends the Plan Commission waive the initial review for both the warehouse and office addition and approve it with the conditions that the site plan approval should expire within 1 year from today. That will give the applicant some flexibility to at least construct that warehouse addition, but then have the option of going forward with that office addition if they choose to do so this year. If it's beyond a year, they'll have to come back and get reapproved for it. The second condition is that they submit a photometric plan to to myself, and I would sign off on that before occupancy is granted. Applicant is aware of those conditions, and they have no concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I just want to take a step back here for a second. I apologize to the Plan Commission and those in the audience. This is Adam's first meeting, and I know many of you have worked with Adam, or some of you have worked with Adam. I certainly have, and I've been very impressed. Adam Sayre has been with us since February 18th. We are very fortunate as a city to have Adam here as our planner. I think you'll see his professionalism and his enthusiasm and certainly his interest in working here for the city of Verona. So welcome, and I apologize that I didn't do that before you gave your first report here, Adam. So we'll have you'll have an opportunity to meet with him perhaps after the meeting or some other time, but welcome again.
Thank you.
With that, you've heard the background on this. Is there anyone representing the applicant that wishes to speak at this time, if you would? If there is anyone who wishes? If so, please come forward and
just briefly.
if you would identify yourself, please.
Sure, I'm Jonathan Parker with Epstein Ewan Architects. We're working with PC Name Tag on the design of the building. And just very briefly, Adam, you did a great job explaining the project. We'd be happy to answer any questions. Just 2 points of clarification. The building, when it was initially designed and sited on the building site, actually planned for these additions. So both the warehouse footprint and the office footprint were thought of in 2001 when this building was designed, so now we're actually bringing that to fruition. And the other little minor thing I wanted to point out on the illustrations, we've got the labels in yellow so you can see them: warehouse addition, office addition, and those are just labels. We don't have an intention of having something yellow on the roof of the building. You know, at the risk of stating the obvious, those are just to enhance the rendering. So any other technical questions, just give me a holler.
Okay. Are there questions? Mr. Ritt, you had your hand up, please.
There are not. At this time, Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to approve the site plan for PC Name Tag for a warehouse and office addition located at 124 Horizon Drive with the 2 conditions outlined by the Director of Planning and Development. 1, that the Plan Commission approval of the site plan shall expire on April 4th, 2014, and the applicant shall apply for all building permits on or before April 4th, 2014. Number 2, that a photometric plan for new parking shall be submitted and approved by the Director of Planning and Development prior to occupancy being granted.
We have a motion by Mr. Ritt. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Linder. We are open for discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. You have your approval. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we have site plan review for Quick Trip to construct natural gas fueling tanks, equipment, and fencing located at 2145 County Trunk Highway, PB. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Quick Trip is proposing to construct a natural gas distribution, I guess, not facility, but a place where you can refill on natural gas. The proposed location will be located here in this little island green space. This is the car wash, this is the actual convenience store, and these are the overhead gas canopies. Proposed construction requires site plan review by the Planning Commission. Right now in Dane County, I'm only aware of one other location that does supply compressed natural gas. That is at MG&E site downtown. So this would be the second one in Dane County. They're proposing to install it along with mechanicals and fencing, as I said, in this green space here. Proposed bulk requirements, it meets all required setbacks. The closest property line is 65 feet to the north. They're proposing to landscape the actual mechanicals inside the enclosure with landscaping and then also with a fence. The landscaping will be a combination of bushes on the north and south sides, and then also some grasses along here and grasses along here, and they also propose to install some trees as well. There is some existing landscaping in the area. There's a couple trees. They'll either relocate those on the site or use those within this area. From a drainage standpoint, no additional drainage or stormwater requirements are necessary for this project. The big thing that we looked at with this was how best can we screen it? How can we kind of hide this to make sure that the mechanicals inside the enclosure are not visible from the roadway and from the people out there. Initially, when we talked to Quick Trip, we asked them to do a brick enclosure to match the building that's out there, and they agreed to do that. They looked into it, and actually looked into it. What they realized was underneath this island, there's a stormwater pipe running from here, approximately catching this corner here, and there's also a stormwater pipe running directly through the middle of the site. Because of the footings and the footings required for the brick enclosure, they couldn't do it. And to rip up the stormwater pipe and replace it, it was just too costly for that. So the option they came back with was this 8-foot tall, I'll call it a weave fence. It looks like it has a weave to it. It gives a little undulation. This fence will be constructed of a composite material. The color will be a brownish, similar to what's on the screen and what's in your packets. And there will also be some doors of similar material constructed on the west elevations and also on the east elevation as well. The intention is to obviously put the mechanicals inside here and then allow diesel trucks to, or not diesel trucks, but vehicles that use natural gas to refill in the truck island over on this area. One of the questions I had regarding this was noise. What kind of noise would be generated? And probably the best comparison for it would be the similar noise as to an air conditioner at your house. They said that it wouldn't be any louder than with the car wash that's out there. And they also submitted to us actually a noise study that was from Eagan, Minnesota. And basically what the study shows is that you're not going to hear anything. It fits in with the other cars in the site. It fits in with the car wash in the site. And obviously with the fencing and with the landscaping, it's going to cut down any noise as well. With that being said, staff is recommending the Plan Commission waive the initial review requirement for this. We think that it's a small project. It's good for the city. We can get natural gas here. It's a benefit for businesses and people with those vehicles. It's growing in demand in the country. So we think we recommend the Plan Commission waive that initial review and approve the screening and landscaping for the proposed natural gas.
Thank you, Mr. Sir, for that background. Do we have representatives of Quick Trip here? If you would, sir, if you would please come forward and identify yourself for our benefit and those watching at home.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council Commission members. My name is Rob Hansen, representing Quick Trip from La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I guess I'm here to entertain any questions that you might have.
Mr. Heinzen.
Sure. I think I only have one question. With only 2 CNG stations, if that's the case in Dane County, would we anticipate a significant increase in traffic into Verona? I don't know how many vehicles are using CNG on the highways right now or the roads.
Right now, Quick Trip has 9 compressed natural gas stations up and operational within the states of Wisconsin and Minnesota. We have a station down in Sturtevant, Wisconsin, and then over in Pewaukee, and then a few north in Oshkosh and Sheboygan. While there isn't a great demand for the compressed natural gas right now, it is becoming a more and more prevalent source of fueling for more of the fleet vehicles right now. But as far as the additional traffic flow, I would say it'd be minimal right now, with obviously our hope to gain more and more over the years to come. Not a great increase.
Does Quick Trip have any other plans to build in Madison area or Dane County other than this one?
Simple answer, yes.
Okay.
I have no idea
Timing
where,
is,
yeah,
okay.
there's obviously other groups within Quick Trip in the real estate department and stuff that have, you know, in different fields looking for different places, but,
Okay, thanks.
yep.
Are there further questions or comments from Planning Commission members? Mr. Ritt, please.
Mr. Mayor, given the location of this particular store for Quick Trip and what they're proposing, and given the presentation by the Director of Planning and Development, I will at this time make a motion to waive and move forward and approve the site plan for Quick Trip as presented. That would include both the screening and the proposed screening and the landscaping. Is that what you're getting at?
We have a motion by Mr. Ritt. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lytle. Questions or comments on the motion? Mr. Lytle.
Yeah, just as someone who seems to visit this site at least 3 times a week. Question for Mr. Gunlock. If you can either, would you mind pulling up the site layout? Adam, thanks. This may or may not help me explain what I'm asking for. A car coming from the south, essentially, that's leaving the passenger vehicle fueling area and coming to what's basically a T intersection on the basically directly west of the car wash entrance. I've noticed that there's sometimes some issues with visibility for cars coming from the east, basically along the backside of the car wash. And it seems like adding this 8-foot tall fence might create some visibility issues for cars coming from the west. Does it make sense to have a stop sign added basically at the end of that island, the western tip of that island, so it's clear that a car coming from the south should stop there and look for traffic coming both directions? Or is there visibility such that it's kind of overkill for a situation like that?
I don't know that you'd want a stop sign, maybe a yield.
Makes sense.
It's really on site, and it's really, we can't really tell them to put in a stop sign.
Okay.
For, as far as traffic is concerned, because the police department doesn't have any jurisdiction in that parking lot.
Okay, okay. I've seen a number of times cars just have approach issues from different directions, and I don't know if the fence is far enough back from that intersection, if you want to call it that, that may not make things any worse, but it might be a good idea. I guess I would, if Mr. Ritt were so inclined to accept it as a friendly amendment, add that as a condition of approval, the addition of a yield sign.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, we will add that to the main motion.
Unless the applicant sees a problem with that.
No, actually, ironic that you say that. I was just over there about an hour and a half ago, and I experienced the very same thing.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's quite evident.
Cool.
Are there further questions or comments on the motion? If not, you've heard the motion with the addition here for the yield sign as a condition of approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried, and that is approved.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we have discussion and possible action regarding site plan review for Advance Auto Parts to construct an auto parts store located at 512 West Verona Avenue. Mr. Sayre, if you would provide the background, please.
Advanced Auto Parts is proposing to construct a 6,800 square foot store at 512 West Verona Avenue. This is the, I believe, 4th review of the proposed site plan. It was previously discussed at the February, January, and August Plan Commission meetings. From the last February meeting, the site plan actually hasn't changed. This one Well, I guess it has slightly. I apologize for that. The dumpster enclosure, which was proposed back in this area, has been shifted to more of a easterly location to screen it from the roadway. So it's actually at an angle this way. And they've also added a path from the front door to the sidewalk for a pedestrian connection. Beyond that, those are the changes that have been made to the site plan itself. It still meets all the bulk requirements. Parking still conforms to the zoning requirements. From a landscaping standpoint, they submitted 2 landscaping plans in the packet, same as the past. The landscaping on the screen right now is the I guess preferred landscaping plan from a staff standpoint. The other landscaping plan had a variety of fencing and less trees and less bushes and shrubs. This plan actually provides more than ample number of points, will adequately screen the adjacent properties, and from a long-term standpoint is easier to maintain than fences. Fences over time tend to deteriorate. So staff is recommending this landscaping plan for the project. Lighting. Lighting hasn't changed once again. There was discussion in the staff report about cutoffs of lights on the west side of the building. The applicant has agreed to have those be full cutoffs. Probably the big thing that has been discussed in the past is the architecture of the building. And I put 3 of the submittals in here to kind of see how it's progressed over the meetings itself. The top one was from maybe January or August. There's a lot of block in it, not much going on with it. This one was from the February Plan Commission meeting. There were some improvements made. You have different colors, different banding, some windows, some elevation here to kind of break the wall up a little bit. But the Plan Commission still felt there needed to be improvements made to it. So I had a chance to sit down with the architect or the applicant, and this is kind of what we came up with as the alternative for the building itself. The color has been changed. It's more of a brownish color. It's more, I guess, warming, I'd call it, compared to the lighter colors of past. We also have the columns have been added here along both the east and the south elevation. We've added some windows. They're spandrel windows, so they're false windows, but it does provide more of that pedestrian storefront look to it. Along with the windows, they've added awnings. These are a gray-ish type of awning. I know they're still working on that color. It hasn't been finalized yet, but something similar to that color would be installed there as well. And probably the biggest difference is actually the red background that's behind the sign. That really kind of helps make the building look more like a natural storefront and not so much, I want to say a prototype, but your typical Advanced Auto Parts. So the intent was to try to make this look like any other building out there. And so if Advanced Auto Parts would leave in 5, 10, 20, 30 years, it could be easily converted back into something different. Bottom line is, when looking at it, was from a staff standpoint, the proposed submitted architectural elevations and plans conform to the zoning requirements. This is about as far as I can take it. I know I was asked to take a look at it before I started, and the applicant has kind of agreed to work on it and made these changes. I think these are significant improvements. The materials are, we have more of a brick look to it. There is some block on the bottom here, but it's brick. We have the columns. The red background is gone. There's false windows. There's awnings to it. I think it looks pretty good, personally. But I guess I can throw it to the Plan Commission, but if my recommendation is the Plan Commission approve it. I think it's a nice project now. They've actually even increased the height slightly to help better screen the rooftop mechanicals. And if the Plan Commission has any comments, to the applicant, please be as specific as possible, because for clarification for everyone's purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Is there anyone here representing the applicant that wishes to speak this evening? And again, if you would, please identify yourself.
Dave Herbeck, the developer for Advanced Auto Parts. I did bring the actual samples tonight. Sometimes the reproduction isn't exactly what it looks like. So these are the actual materials and colors for what we're looking at. So since there weren't any other significant changes to the project other than the entire building, if you have any other specific questions for the building, or the project. I'll be happy to answer anything you might have.
Mr. Ritt?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to take the opportunity to address Mr. Herbeck and thank him for all the efforts he's made. I've probably been as big a thorn in your side.
Steve, is your mic on? Sorry.
I've probably been as big a thorn in your side from the start of this project, but I really want to thank you. I think I agree completely with the Director of Planning and Development. You really stepped up on this. I think it's a significant improvement. You've brought it a long way to get where we are today. I'm very pleased with what I see both in the building and the site plan. I'm particularly pleased with the landscaping plan down in that corner by the driveway entrance, because I'm hoping that as a result of your development today, we won't see that lot used as a used car lot anymore. That'll be a thrill, I think, for a lot of us who drive West Verona Avenue quite often. So as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Mayor, I think it's a terrific, it's a great thing that the applicant has done in terms of really stepping up, working with planning and development, working with us. I think it's going to be a good addition. It's going to be nice. If the Plan Commission agrees with me, it's going to be a nice addition and good to see that that lot gets developed. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to approve the site plan for Advanced Auto Parts to construct an auto parts store located at 512 West Verona Avenue, consistent with the site plan submitted to us this evening.
We have a motion by Mr. Ritt. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Horsfall. We are open for discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion? Mr. Linder?
I've got a couple questions. I guess they're more for Mr. Sayer. You talked about the dumpster being at an angle in the back.
Yes.
I only see that on one plan, and the same with the sidewalk. I don't see that on any plans.
Correct, and that's something the applicant has agreed to. It was being finalized as a last minute, that's why I didn't make it in the packet, but the applicant has agreed to do it, and I think he'll say yes to that. Yes, he's nodding his head yes, so
So do we
the
need to-
dumpster has been reorientated in the back there, so it wouldn't be visible from the road, and the sidewalk, was this a connection to the actual,
So do we need to add those as amendments since they're not part of the original plan here?
Sure, if
That's
you
up
want
to
to.
you. There's really, it's a technicality between my architect and the civil guy. They just didn't get their stuff married quickly enough.
Mr. Ritt?
I think Mr. Linder makes a good point, and I'm certainly happy to have my motion adjusted as such. I think we ought to cover that. It's a good point.
And Mr. Horsfall, you were fine with that? Okay. Jack, you had additional questions?
So just the question on the fake windows, they're just gonna be dark and there's gonna be something behind them, brick, that you're not gonna be able to see, or how does that work?
You will not be able to see through them. They're not gonna be dark per se. They're gonna be a little more grayish. So they won't have the look of being just black. They're gonna be a little bit lighter than that.
But you won't be able to see
You won't be
through
able to
them,
see through them.
And they're windows, they're glass and stuff.
They're glass.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lytle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the hats I seem to be wearing lately is the protector of signage along Verona Avenue. I see that the site plan mentions a potential monument sign. I guess I'd ask Mr. Sayer first in terms of what your thoughts were on that sign versus signage on the building, and then get any input from the rest of the Plan Commission.
Mr. Sayer?
The sign is consistent with past plans that were submitted to the Plan Commission, so I really didn't discuss it at all with the applicant. I believe it's allowed by ordinance, so both wall signage on the building and the actual ground sign is permitted, so it's allowable as long as it meets certain square footage requirements, which will be finalized during the building permit process. So my thoughts are that it's allowed by ordinance, so from a code standpoint, it's allowable.
Are there further, Mr. Ritt?
Just a quick question. Let's make sure, Pat, I don't mean to step on your question, but same materials?
Yes.
Same materials
Sign
that we're
base,
seeing right?
yes, yeah.
So consistent with something like we may see on East Verona Avenue, we've seen same consistency in terms of materials on a
Same
on a
material, same
monument sign.
colors, yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Just a comment on my part, I want to echo Mr. Ritt's comments. I think this is another great example of, through some discussions, maybe it took a few more meetings, but we ended up with a much better project. So I want to thank you as well for the work that you've done on that. Seeing no additional questions or comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the approval of the site plan for Advance Auto Parts signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried, and that has been approved. Thank you again.
Good luck.
Next, we have discussion and possible action regarding initial site plan review for the Madison Area Youth Soccer Association to construct a championship field, accessory building, and site enhancements located in the Redden Soccer Park. Mr. Sayer, if you'd provide the background, please.
The applicant is requesting an initial review of Phase 2 of the improvements within Redden Soccer Park. The improvements consist of a new enhancements to the existing soccer field, team benches, ticketing plaza, bleachers, seating, digital scoreboard, press box, a medical facility, and a park memorial. Specifically looking at this, the proposed field will be a synthetic type material, similar to what is found at many other outdoor soccer fields. It's got the, I think, rubber balls in it, and it's the kind of the fake grass. Proposing to actually install that within an existing field on the site. They're also proposing team benches on the west side here, along with a ticketing plaza here. Bleacher seating along here. I think the bleachers will accommodate 380 people. There'll be an elevated press box in the red there. A digital scoreboard will be located in the southwest corner of the site, facing to the northeast, away from the residential homes to the west. Along with it, they're also proposing a medical facility adjacent to the site. The medical facility is still being worked on. It'll be approximately 1,000 square feet. It'd be for athletic trainers during events. So if someone would be hurt, there'd be trainers in there to take care of that person, or help bandage up whatever injuries they may have. And they're also proposing a park memorial and landscaping as you come into the site. There'd be some flagpoles here, and then a wall, a dedication wall of some type, recognizing some of the sponsors for these improvements. The field itself, as I said, would be synthetic. There's also a retaining wall in the northeast corner due to some grade issues, and the entire field would be fenced in. That's for the safety of spectators and the safety of the players. This is the initial review of it. The proposed field would be located over an existing field on the site. The only improvements that they're proposing are just the field improvements. There isn't any additional lighting, nothing along those kind of lines. It's just for the field itself. Parking and access would be unchanged. It'd be the same as what's out there today. A future landscaping plan will be submitted when this goes for final review by the Plan Commission. Staff is confident that the landscaping will meet the ordinance requirements. Drainage on the site, the improvements will not cause any adverse drainage to the site. Actually, it'll probably improve drainage. So that's probably a good thing they're making these improvements. And from an architectural standpoint, the building itself is going to match what's out there. So there's an existing building on the site. We expect the new building to be very similar to that one in style and in the look to it. So with that, it's the initial review, so staff is requesting the Plan Commission provide the applicant with any feedback regarding the improvements to Redden Park.
Are there any representatives of the applicant that wish to speak this evening?
Good evening. My name is Mike Schmelzer. I represent JST Professional Services and the Madison Area Youth Soccer Association in our efforts to provide these site improvements at the Redden Soccer Park. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Schmelzer? Mr. Ritt.
Mr. Schmelzer, could
Yes.
you, Adam, could you put up that, could you put that up once again? Which one? The layout that shows the fields and. Yeah, okay, that's just to the lower end of that, Mr. Schmelzer, if you can see that. I'm noting on the master plan that you have two 80-foot stadium light poles that you're looking, and I assume that they would, actually, you have 4 of them shown there, and you have then 2 70-footers on the outside, there you are, to the furthest bottom of the picture. One of the things that I'd leave you with, you may or may not be familiar with this, but the city was recently approached by US Cellular looking for an alternative location for its current site located on the water tank up on the hill in the county park.
Okay.
They were told summarily that the county had absolutely no interest whatsoever in allowing them to rebuild a stealth site up on that hill when that water tank went away. They wanted nothing to do with anything like that in the park. They came to us, and we've been working through the process with them. And one of the alternatives I understand was brought forward was an alternative location on a flagpole, for example, at Redden Park, which would meet their needs and could very possibly be a significant benefit to Mesa in terms of long-term fundraising and a long-term source of revenue. I am told, and again, I think you should double-check these facts, that when a meeting was held in order to look at that as an alternative location, the county showed up with the Ice Age Trail people who happened to be on the other side of the fence from the Redden Park. And they immediately said, no way, no how are we going to agree to letting you do anything inside Redden with regard to possible use of one of these poles, which could be done on a stealth basis. I guess my comment is, I like what I see here. I would urge you to go back and particularly talk to your county representatives and ask them to take a very serious look at, in fact, whether if you're approached in the future, you might have an opportunity to make use of one or more of these light poles on a stealth basis to provide you with a source of, your client, excuse me, with a source of revenue going forward.
Sure.
I think it's perfectly fit for something like that. It's something that should seriously be considered, but apparently up till now has been out of hand dismissed as no interest whatsoever. That's my one comment that I see in the plan. I think there's a significant opportunity here where Mesa and Redden could definitely benefit, and up till now have been told no.
Well, I'm unaware of that. That's, actually news to me today, but, as an advocate for our client, I'm always looking out for the best interest. We are at JSD. I know that there are some agreements between the county and Mesa, and I'm not sure of all the particulars. I think if there's something that's advantageous to Mesa and there's revenue involved as a nonprofit, it's something I know that they'd want to consider. And strongly, I would recommend that to them as well, but I know that there's a relationship that needs to be maintained too. And the Ice Age Trail, which borders this property, is a significant entity as well. So it's hard to make everybody happy, but I leave that to Mesa. And
I understand completely, and understand when you take this away, this is not a position advocating for the addition of a tower in Redden Park.
Right. It's a
This
simple,
is using a stealth facility. You may not, but if you are approached by a carrier to potentially use that as a stealth facility on your existing pole, changing nothing other than saying we want to use one of the existing poles and use it in a stealth fashion, I think it's worthwhile being pursued.
certainly we will make sure that we consider all those opportunities. No doubt about that.
Are there
Thanks for your
questions or
information.
comments from the Plan Commission or anything additional? Mr. Horsfall?
Yeah, how far from the edge of the playing field to the retaining wall?
There's 20 feet.
Oh, okay, so it looks real close, so I didn't think that, somebody.
Sometimes scale's a little bit odd and it's
Yeah.
hard to tell, but we have considered that as far as a runoff area.
Additional questions, comments? Mr. Linder?
You just hit on my question there, but I think it looks really nice. I think it'd be a great addition to Verona, so I hope it works out.
Very good, thank you. I'm hoping it does too.
Jeff asked the same question I was going to ask too. And just a final comment, yesterday I was speaking with someone from the city of Marshfield. This isn't directed necessarily towards you, but their family was just in Verona this past weekend and playing some hockey, and they just said, you don't know how fortunate you are as a city, the size of the city that you are, to have all the recreational amenities that we have here. And people recognize that. We've done a lot in the area of recreation. The city has felt strong about recreation programs for years and years. We will continue to do that, and Mesa is a big part of that. So
Very good, I appreciate that. We're very excited to be able to provide those services for Mesa, and we are as excited as it sounds like you guys are.
okay, well, thank you.
You bet.
I am going to take a little bit of liberty this evening. We had someone who had asked prior to the meeting to make a couple comments on this project, on this initial site plan review. This is not, we don't normally have public comment. This is not a public hearing, but I'm gonna ask, is Ms. Paul, if you want to say a few words, but please, I would ask that you would respect the Plan Commission's time and keep your comments very short, if you would, please. And again, if you would, please introduce yourself.
I'm Debbie Paul. I live at 6818 Cross Country Road. I'm the first direct neighbor to Military Ridge Park and Redden Soccer Park to the east, the new house there. So I just wanted to kind of let some of my concerns happen. I know that this property got annexed from the town of Verona into the city of Verona, and I live in the town of Verona, so I don't get any notification when the property has things going on. And there were a couple concerns that I had when they came before the town of Verona about some of the improvements, and one was the lighting, which went in, and I'm very happy. It looks like it's a really nice down shading. I don't get a lot of shining in my house, which was really one of my big concerns. We have kids who go to school. But one of the other things that they had kind of mentioned, and I did call the city to ask about, was possibly looking to get a liquor license, and I am quite adamantly against that, being it's a youth soccer association and it's a Dane County park. They actually lease that property, they don't own that property. So I just wanted to kind of come here and let it be known. I had a lot of meetings with Dane County Parks Division and Mesa before they went through all their initial review, and so I would somehow like to be on notification. I did sign up with the city. That's how I found out about this tonight. So, and I didn't realize there wasn't a public hearing, so I do appreciate you letting me talk. So,
Well, thank you for keeping it real short. So thank you very much. Additional questions, comments this evening? Okay, no action on that. We will move then to agenda item number 8, which is initial site plan review for the West End development to construct 40 apartment units located at the south of West End Circle. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Thank you. The West End is proposing to construct 40 apartment units and 2,500 square feet of commercial space immediately south of West End Circle. On the screen right now is actually the previously approved GDP, General Development Plan. This is a planned development, so this is the overall concept plan that the city approved. And what has been constructed to date, or is under construction, are these 3 apartment buildings. And what the developer is asking to do is to take in an area that was shown in the previously approved GDP as a mixed-use area. So mixed use means commercial or office in the first floor, and then the second and third floor would be residential area, and convert that into a 3-story apartment structure, which would be the blue part here. Now let's go to this one, the blue part here, and the front end would be 2,500 square feet of commercial space. The intent on the commercial space would be to attract a fitness center of some type. There's a demand out there from the people renting apartments. If they couldn't attract a fitness center of some type, it'd probably be a private area for the residents to use as a fitness center. They would make it all just for the people renting out there. Like I said before, the GDP for this was approved in 2007. It was amended back in 2011 to allow the construction of the apartment buildings. Right now, under construction or constructed, there are 106 apartment units. This additional 40 units would bring it to 146. The initial GDP spelled out or allowed 146 apartment units. So this would be the last number or last apartments that would be allowed under the existing GDP unless it was amended. From a bulk standpoint, the plan development overlay did provide a variety of exemptions and bulk setback reductions. The proposed building that they're showing here would conform to all the bulk requirements in the plan developments. They are proposing 39 underground parking spaces along with 29 at-grade parking spaces. Once again, the plan development overlay district provided a variety of exemptions from the ordinance requirements as it relates to parking. The parking ratios they are proposing are the exact same as what was approved for the apartments located to the north. In addition, they're also proposing a parking overflow area. So if parking were to become an issue, they've identified this area as a possible spot area that they would construct for additional parking if concerns were to come up. Landscaping, no landscaping plans are submitted. This is the initial review, conceptual review, so those plans have not been submitted but would be prepared at the next meeting. Drainage and stormwater, the site will drain to the west. There's an existing pond located in this area, and the site would drain that way. From an architectural standpoint, architectural elevations were not submitted with the initial review. The applicant wanted to receive feedback from the Plan Commission prior to creating those. What they've said though is that the apartments would have the same look as the existing apartments on the site itself. The commercial component on the north end, that would have a distinct commercial look to it. But the apartments would look very similar to what was already approved on the property. The only difference is on the west elevation of that building, they are proposing live-work units on that site. Staff doesn't really support that, and the reason is, along with the live units, they're proposing to construct those with a storefront type look. Our feeling is those are probably not going to be live work. Looking at the internal layouts, it's probably just going to be apartments for the next how many years. So our feeling is, if you're going to build it and use it as apartments, let's construct them and make them look like apartments. Let's not gingerbread them and kind of hide what it is. You know, their intention was possibly to convert those in the future to commercial. We don't see that happening. We see it being 40 apartment units and not live work, just 40 apartment units. So we recommend, if it does go forward, that the building is designed from a standpoint of to look like an apartment building, not with I want to say false facade that looks like a storefront, but that it actually looks like an apartment unit with a walk up to it. The city does have a residential phasing policy as it relates to multifamily development. That was passed in October of 2012. And what this policy says, it establishes a target range for the number of multifamily units that can be approved each year. And that range is from 25 to 50 units each year. To date, in 2013, no projects have been submitted. So we're not within those constraints at all. We're at 0. But the policy does establish a range between 25 and 50 total units that would be approved by the city each year for multifamily. So the proposed 40 units would fit within that range. And it's also important to point out as well, when the project was approved in 2007, it did call for 146 apartment units. The proposed 40 would bring them to 146. So it is consistent with the overall number that was provided in the GDP. In addition, the building that they are showing is very similar in orientation to the initial building that was proposed in 2007. Yes, the uses are different, but the orientation and the layout to it is very similar to what the city did approve 6 years ago. One thing that, when we met with them from a staff standpoint, we said, you know, if the Plan Commission were to approve this, obviously there was some apartments planned in the yellow here to the south there. Additional, you know, mixed use with the commercial on the first floor and the apartments on the second or third floor. That was planned in that area. With hitting that, I'm going to say, cap of 146, that's no longer viable. I mean, the fact that it is that they've hit that number, so we'll be at what was initially approved. So staff has recommended that the applicant go back and take a look at the overall plan. You know, is that mixed use still feasible? You know, obviously that is dependent upon land large format retail. If the large format retail isn't landed, the smaller box and the yellow isn't viable from an economic standpoint. They won't locate there. So we've asked that, or we've encouraged the developer to go back and look at the big picture of the overall site plan and look at it and go, is this what your future intentions are, or if your intentions have changed, let's look at the big scheme of things. Because the reality is they can't come in for a PIP or a final approval of this yellow area if the Plan Commission does approve the additional 40 apartments. We've hit that cap. We have to somehow deal with this area here of what's going to go there. Does the developer or does the applicant want more apartments there? Well, we need to amend the GDP if that would happen. As it stands right now, the 40 units that are proposed do conform to the general development plan. It's not exactly the same, but a general development plan is supposed to be general. Generally, it does conform to the requirements, and it does fall within that 40 unit requirement as well. So with that being said, staff recommends the Plan Commission review what has been submitted and provide the applicant with feedback. I know Terrence could not be here tonight. He's meeting with the City of Madison, but there are representatives from T-Wall and also as the architect is here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Serra, for that background, and if there's anyone representing the applicant, if you please come forward.
Yes, my name is Randy Bruce. I'm with Kanothi and Bruce Architects, and I'm here to answer whatever questions you might have. As Adam mentioned, Terrence was not available to come to the meeting this evening. He wanted me to make sure that I apologize to everybody personally about that. I hope that everyone is familiar with the project. I think it's a very attractive multifamily development. I think it serves a real need for Verona. I think it's well located. It's going to help support the future commercial development in that area. And we would ask for your support in this final phase here.
Thank you. Question, Mr. Heinzen, please.
Sure, thank you. I'm going to start by just saying that the project has changed so much over the last year and a half or so that it's hard for me to keep in mind what changes were made and where this is supposed to end up. But I do have some questions. I think right out of the gate is if you could just give us an update on what other, like UW Credit Union at one time, I think that Terrence was here and said that as soon as the apartment building started to get built, there was almost a certainty that UW Credit Union would start to build. Has that happened? I mean, what's the status there?
I don't know the status of the UW Credit Union building. I had heard that they were looking for one additional commercial piece to come up front before they were to move forward. But we can check on that and give Adam some additional information on that.
And are you aware of any other commercial possibility on the horizon right now?
I knew that there was they also had a hotel that was either committed or was waiting for development. I think everybody's in somewhat the same position right now. There's been obviously some economic reasons for the delay and slowdown. I think as we see the economy in general getting stronger, I think we're going to see some more activity. And as I stated before, I think this residential development actually helps assist that. I think it shows the site as a developed site and enhances its future potential.
Okay. Of the 54 unit apartment building, the first one that was completed, I guess, how many of those apartments have been, are they all rented out now, or do you know what the vacancy is on those?
My understanding is that there's one vacant in that 54 unit, and that of the ones that are under construction now, there's another 53 that are under construction now, and of those, there are about 20 of the 53 that are pre-leased. So the market's very strong, as you know, in all of Dane County. The vacancy rate is at a historic low.
So the 53, I know that there's this 3-story that is on the east side that's being built right now. That has 33 apartments in it?
That's correct, 33, and then on the far west end then is a 2-story, 20-unit building.
And has construction started on that?
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just first floor is rough framed and
Okay. And what is the most significant difference, I guess, in the new proposal from what was in the earlier
in the
proposal?
original
Yeah.
general development plan, it's really, if you look at it in a general terms, it's very insignificant. Really, what we've done is the general development plan showed a freestanding retail restaurant building on the, right at the, as you come in that entrance, and then a building right behind it. We've, in essence, combined those two structures and have, as Adam was saying, have made the apartment portion come down to grade to include the first floor of that.
Okay, and so by doing that, you've increased the total number of apartments in that particular structure that you had originally planned for?
I think that it's safe to say that the apartment construction's happened a little quicker than the commercial construction, and so that apartment construction has been concentrated into this area. I think that's correct.
Do you know how many apartments were originally intended to be in that first building?
There really was, the general development plan was very loose in that regard. It just called out commercial or residential, and throughout that whole area. I don't think there was any specifics as far as building by building.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Linder, please.
Well, I guess I'm a little disappointed. When Terrence came here before we approved the apartment redistribution, he said that was gonna be the catalyst for commercial. The way I understand it, he says to get departments going, the credit union would come, the hotel would come, everything would start moving. The only thing that's come is more apartments, which disappoints me because it feels like it's becoming, instead of being a multi-use, it's become a multi-family project right now. And personally, I don't feel comfortable with allowing this unit to go in without having a footprint of the entire plan. I think it needs to be the whole thing needs to be looked at. We approve that, and we maybe bind our hands or tie our hands to what we can do with some of the other spots. So that's my feeling. I'm pretty disappointed.
Ms. Ritter, please.
Thanks. Do you know right now what the intentions are for the other 3 buildings that are along that park there that are?
Along the greenway there?
Yeah.
I do not know. I know that the T-Wall Enterprises has been actively pursuing users and development opportunities for that. Again, as everybody knows here, the commercial real estate development has been really at a standstill since 2007. So I'm sure they are very motivated to do what they can with that, and are just waiting for the appropriate users. Again, if I'm not representing them, but
It's unfortunate that he's not here.
yeah, but we can, and I'm not sure he would necessarily be able to answer, but we can certainly get some additional information to Adam if need be.
Well, I'll reiterate what I had told him the last time he came in front of us, was that when we approved the apartments that are under construction right now, I felt like the plan was to come back and ask for additional apartments along the parkway, which is now what's happening. And I agree with you, Jack, that if we approve this apartment building, then that's going to tie our hands to approve the other ones that are coming down the line, which are right in line with this apartment. So I don't believe I would be in favor of this.
Mr. Sarah?
For what Terrence has told me, the intention would be to come back. Obviously, if the Plan Commission were to approve this, his intention is to come back and look at the overall site. So he did say that to me, that's his goal. He understands that obviously he's allowed only up to that 146. I'm just relaying the message that he gave me.
Mm-hmm.
But with the understanding, obviously, that the whole site kind of needs to be reevaluated in essence.
Ms. Ritter?
A follow-up question to that, just so I heard you correctly. He said that if what he's approving right here was approved by us, then he would come back with a of the original plan?
Okay, I don't know exactly how he said it. I mean, the conversation we basically had with him was we need to look at the whole project. I mean, obviously, if this isn't approved, he may come back at that point anyways and look. Either way, we told him he needs to probably take a look at it, because there have been changes over time, and the whole site should just be taken a look at.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I just wanted to relate that when Mr. Sayer and I had conversations with Terrence Wall, originally there was a concept discussed to locate an additional apartment unit building north of West End Circle. Staff's reaction was that we were very concerned about that, felt that that was clearly a difference from the GDP and would inhibit the development of commercial property along Verona Avenue. This concept was then submitted to include the apartment development south of West End Circle. We did feel that that was more consistent with the general development plan. Specifically to the comment about the remainder of the site, that was something that we had discussed, that what are the plans for the future, what is the impact of this going in here, and we felt, at least from a staff level, that this particular proposal is consistent with the GDP, but certainly that would use up the limit of multifamily units that was in the general development plan, and that given the economic conditions now versus 2007 when this originally came in, that we would recommend that prior to coming in for any additional development or potential modifications, that the entire site be reevaluated. And Mr. Wall at least indicated to us that that was his intention to conduct that review, but he still wanted to bring this particular item forward prior to going through that process to potentially amend the general development plan.
Mr. Lytle?
I don't want to say over again what's already been said, but when first off, an acknowledgement that I certainly understand that economic conditions have changed and the best laid plans require adjustment. And I think this body and the city of Verona has been very accommodating in helping you meet those needs and those realities. What this project came to us as was an example of new urbanism and being able to see transitions between residential to mixed to small-scale commercial to large-scale commercial. And I see that disappearing rapidly, and that concerns me. In addition, the piecemeal approach that seems to be going forward right now doesn't agree with me either. I would much rather see a general development plan that reflects in reality what you think you can achieve on this site. And I know you're relaying a message, so to be clear. And in addition, that looking at trying to take this building and turn it into another apartment building, and even some sort of live and work approach doesn't meet the goals that were already established in the general development plan. So it would seem pretty straightforward to me that you could get almost the same number of units you're requesting by building those two north buildings as they were originally proposed in the GDP, with some obvious vacancies underneath for the retail part, which might help ease this process for you all. Or, like I said, come back with a revised general development plan for the remainder of the site.
Other questions or comments? Go ahead.
Just as a clarification, perhaps. So it sounds that the Plan Commission would like to see if this idea is to move forward, that the Plan Commission would like to see the overall plan reviewed and brought in a little bit larger view of the development. And we can certainly work with Terrence on that.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments from the Planning Commission? There is no action on this item this evening. I'm sorry, Mr. Horsfall.
I'm just in agreement with everyone else. Steve hasn't mentioned anything, but I agree with everyone else's comments, so thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Appreciate it.
Again, no action on that item. Next, we are on agenda item number 9, which is discussion and possible action regarding initial site plan review and conditional use permit amendment for EPIC to construct a 1,500 vehicle underground parking structure located in the future campus number 4. Mr. Sayer, please.
Thank you. This is the initial review for the parking ramp for campus number 4 at Epic. The proposed ramp would accommodate approximately 1,500 vehicles, be located completely underground, approximately 3 to 4 stories, and would be approximately 500,000 square feet in overall square footage. The proposed location is northwest of the existing Northern Lights Road, and I say existing because that's the next item on the agenda, so I'll try not to cross over too much, but it may happen. The proposed campus is located right here. Access to it off the existing roadway would occur right here. There would be 3 tunnels leading into the underground structure. Each tunnel will go to a different level of the structure. The proposed parking structure would conform to all the setbacks. It meets the required front yard, rear yard, side yard setbacks, and could fit within the existing lot that's located out there right now. The buildings that are being shown on here are only conceptual. They're just kind of shown on there as how they could possibly go. They could be located on the site. The intention is at some point in the future to bring those buildings forward, but right now, regardless, the parking needs to be started. The issue with the parking structure is it takes a long time to construct. It's big, it's going to involve a lot of digging, possibly blasting, so it takes time, and so obviously time is of the essence for Epic on this project. From as I said, access standpoint, it currently works within the existing road alignment. They also submitted a future road alignment of how it would work with that as well. So what we have here is we have Northern Lights Road heading north. We have Cross Country Road west here. Access to the Campus 4 ramp in the future would be obtained off of the intersection here. Traffic would be routed up and around, off of Northern Lights, up and around, and into the ramp from a point here. And then there'll also be an access point connecting the existing ramp over here to this roadway, so they'd have access to this ramp off this roadway as well. The intent is to say dump a lot of the traffic off the roadway off Northern Lights and the future 9 Mound Road before it gets into more of the residential area. So it'll be directed off immediately at this intersection. They've also shown on here conceptually how a future Campus 5 could work. They've shown some possible tunnels here for, if a parking structure were to be located there in the future, this is how it would align as well. But the main focus right now, as I said, is the Campus 4 parking structure, reviewing that, taking a look at that. From a landscaping standpoint, they weren't submitted, but Epic always in the past has submitted sufficient landscaping. The structure itself will be entirely underground, so it will not be visible at all. The only thing you'll see will be the tunnels on the site accessing it. Drainage, site will drain to an existing pond that is located in this area. Detailed plans have not been submitted yet, but I know Epic is in the process of working on that. I think we've seen some conceptual plans as well, and we'll get that to work out. The temporary parking lot that's currently located on the site in this area would be shifted to the north as well. Obviously, that would occur as soon as construction would start here. So the first item on the agenda is just the initial review of this Campus 4 structure. As I've kind of shown here, that it does work with the existing road alignment and would also work with the potential future road alignment as well. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission review the submitted materials and provide comments to the applicant.
Are there any representatives of the applicant that wish to speak on this issue? Mr. Dickman, please.
Good evening. I'm glad to be back in front of this group. It seems like an annual occurrence. With me today is Jeff Mandyke of Cunningham Group Architecture. Cunningham Group has worked on all of our buildings in our Verona campus. And Nathan Lockwood from D'Onofrio, Kottke & Associates are civil engineers for the campus project. So the questions that I can't answer, either Jeff or Nathan should be able to address them. As I think most of you know, Epic continues to grow. We currently have around 6,350 employees, the vast majority of whom are at the Verona campus. and we anticipate adding additional employees this year. With completion of the farm campus, and parenthetically, we moved into the first farm campus building yesterday, so we have about 350 or 400 very happy people in that campus. When we're completed with that, we'll have about 4,500 offices in Verona. So if you do the math, a little over 6,300 and 4,500 offices, we're short on offices. And as I think most of you know, our goal has always been to have everybody in their own office and have all of our parking underground. Currently, again, with the completion of the farm campus parking structure, we'll have approximately 4,500 parking stalls. So we're short on that goal as well. Thus, we're in the process of designing Campus 4, as Mr. Sayer pointed out. Give you a background on what we are envisioning with Campus 4. Though we're tonight just talking about the parking structure, as was alluded to, the design and construction of the campus is a large project, and the first element of that project is the parking structure, because we are anticipating having buildings built on top of the parking structure as well. We're currently envisioning 5 office buildings containing about 300 offices per building, for a total of 1,500 offices. This is very comparable in size and total office count to Campus 1. The additional 1,500 offices would substantially reduce, but not totally eliminate, our office shortage we're experiencing at this time. We are currently in the process of designing the buildings in the campus, the office buildings. The underground parking for 1,500 cars, as I mentioned before, and another food service building similar to Cassiopeia on Campus 1. Cassiopeia is currently operating well over capacity, and serving lunch for over 3,000 people a day. It was initially designed to have a capacity of around 800, maybe 1,000 people. So you can see we're running that facility flat out, and it's a great benefit to have food service for our employees on campus. So we're looking at another Cassiopeia size food service facility. And then the fourth element would be another geothermal central energy plant to serve all the Campus 4 buildings and any future buildings. This facility will use central plant geothermal technology to generate chilled and hot water for building HVAC systems and domestic hot water. We have central energy plants like this in our Campus 2, our farm campus, and our learning campus. This would be a total underground facility as well. Our anticipated construction sequence for Campus 4 is the parking structure first, roads, and underground utilities. And so we're in here tonight to talk specifically about the underground parking facility. Next would be the central energy plant, food service facility, and the connection between Campus 2 and Campus 4. As was shown on the diagram, the food service facility really would be in what's a utility corridor today, just north of Campus 2, and it would be sitting between Campus 2 and Campus 4. All the support, all the transport legs and whatnot between Campus 2, Campus 4, and food service would be underground as well. The parking structure, quite frankly, even if we wouldn't be building Campus 4, if we continued to double up offices, we'd want to build the parking structure just because our goal is to get rid of the surface parking. To give you an order of magnitude, that probably eliminates somewhere between 20 and 30 acres of impervious surface. And we want to get rid of the temporary parking lot, what we call the contractor lot, and the UGM lot. We want to make those back and put that all back into pervious surfaces. So that's what we're proposing as far as this parking structure. A few other elements, as Mr. Sayer mentioned, the facility is located in the urban service area and well served by public utilities. The zoning is suburban industrial, which would accommodate this. It's not in TID 7. It's not in the TIF district. And all the stormwater would be handled on site with retention pond number 4. In summary, it would be 3 to 4 levels underground, contain approximately 1,500 stalls. Our goal is to have the, if we can rebuild the intersection near Cross Country, Nine Mound, and Northern Lights, to bring as much traffic into that facility from the north to avoid traffic coming down on Northern Lights Road. The top of the structure would either be landscaped in our normal fashion or have buildings on top of it, or probably both. And quite frankly, we'd like to start building this facility as soon as possible, because just excavation for the facility will take months. At this point, any questions?
Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Red, please.
I have a question for Mr. Sayer. Adam, do you need anything further in order to move forward with this site plan? I appreciate the fact that Mr. Dickman has given us a great deal of information tonight. He's gone above and beyond in terms of giving us a background on what Campus 4 might entail, some other improvements relative to that. But rather, we've got another item on the agenda. Personally, I'd rather keep this discussion limited to just the parking structure, the underground parking structure. Do you need anything further other than what we have here? And I'll be very pointed in my question. I'm inclined right now, based on what I've heard, and I say that based on the series of public meetings that we've had, the input we've had from the neighbors, the impact. If we look at this, Campus 4 is to the north and west of the existing Northern Lights Road. Not just the realigned, it's north and west of the existing. It's up there by where we had our meetings when we were on campus. This is where the neighbors who initially had the greatest and loudest objections to the whole concept wanted to see things go. And I think right now, there's no reason for us not to, unless Adam is going to tell me he needs something more. I'm inclined tonight to move to waive and get on with approving the site plan for the underground parking. As Mr. Dickman said, this is needed now. It's gonna be used whether Campus 4 gets approved or not. And I'd rather not see us start, trying to negotiate the road, trying to negotiate the tunnels and all that. This is the underground parking. They say they need this regardless. I just soon get on with it.
Mr. Sayer?
As you know, EPIC is a part of what's called a group development, and any change to that group development requires amending that conditional use permit for the group development. So, in short answer to your question, yes, we need more information. We have to formally amend the group development, which I believe their intention is to come back in May and do that, and that falls within, I think, your timeline that you
Correct.
established. Yeah. So.
Okay, that's fine, and I appreciate that. I just wanted to see if there's, in terms of feedback, then you have mine, so thank you.
Mr. Horsfall, please.
As part of the next submittal, is the fire department going to look at this and see if they can access the parking? It seems if there was something to go wrong in the parking structure, that it would be tough for the fire department maybe to get there. I'm not sure, but that's.
We always have the fire department involved in
Okay.
the designs. I mean, they're an integral part of our discussions. I think we have weekly, if not daily, discussions with the fire department.
Other questions, Mr. Lytle?
You did a nice job of finding a home for your contractor laydown area and staging. Can you just give us a little bit of background on where they'll move to? Are you trying to move the temporary building at the same time? Are you going to go back to trailers? And then
We'll try to build around the temporary building while we're building, but if we have to, we'll move it. The temporary contractor building, or what we call the annex building, is working superbly. I think from a productivity, comfort, indoor plumbing, the whole bit. Everybody involved. We have not only our contractors, our subcontractors, our architects. We have offices for city staff when they're visiting. It works superbly versus 25 to 30 trailers on site. So what we're trying to do as we're developing Campus 4 is, and it's going to be tight, is to work around it. Now, we may have to change how you get into the building so that you don't fall in the hole while we're building Campus 4. But that facility has worked absolutely marvelously.
So you don't envision having to move that building outside the urban service area and have to cut off the water,
We would hope not, because that would be a giant step backwards.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Linder?
I don't know if this is a question for you or for Mr. Sayer, but the only access to this parking garage is roads that don't exist now. So how does that get incorporated with approval and stuff like that?
Mr. Sayer?
Well, it kind of leads into the next item on the agenda. The current plans, which I can pop on the screen.
Assuming the next agenda item wouldn't get approved, okay, and Northern Lights stayed right where it is. I think in the site plan that Mr. Sayer showed, the original one, that you in fact could we'd access it off of Hubble from the west, and we'd access off of what is the contractor drive right now, which was in the original Cross Point plat known as Ticker's Trail, which would lead you right in there off of Northern Lights.
And access would remain on that until the future roadway, if it was constructed, until it got shifted.
Other questions or comments? I was hopeful when Mr. Ritz suggested if we could perhaps take action this evening, and I understand why we can't. But again, for the benefit, especially for those watching at home, it seems like perhaps we don't have a lot of questions. We have some, but don't have a lot of questions when it comes here, when it comes to the council. But there is so much work that the applicant and the city staff does, and people that represent the applicant before we ever get to this part. So, almost all these issues, if not all of them, have been addressed at some point during the conversations. Additional questions or comments? We look forward to seeing you soon on this issue again.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So no action on this item. Agenda item number 10, initial review for Epic to replat, vacate, divide in zone lands located in the Cross Point, Meister Edition, and Epic plats. Mr. Sayer, if you would, please.
So this is a rather complicated item, so bear with me. It's not a straightforward in the sense of you don't see this too often. So just bear with me as we go through. I'm sure you might have some questions from a procedure standpoint. But as the mayor said, Epic is requesting to rezone, replat, and vacate portions of the Cross Point, Meister Edition, and Epic plats. I guess to start off, right now, Epic owns what on this one says Cross Point CSM, but this is the Cross Point plat. They own the area in the blue here. There's also the Epic plat, which is in the kind of the greenish area, these two lots here. And then you have the Meister Edition, which is owned by 4 Empty Milk Cans LLC. Epic is in the process of purchasing the Meister Edition subdivision, what's left of it. As part of what's called a replat is there was public right-of-way that was dedicated as part of these subdivisions. It was actually platted in the subdivisions. So what Epic is requesting to do is to vacate or have the city relinquish their rights to that right-of-way and shift the road alignment. That's why you're seeing on the drawing on the screen here, it says Northern Lights Road. The existing roadway is here, obviously, so they're asking to vacate that, to have the city eliminate that, and then relocate it or rededicate that land via a CSM, Certified Survey Map. So obviously there's replat, road vacation, there's a variety of terms being thrown around. So the replat is what's called it's formally, that's the technical name of it. The vacation is eliminating that roadway. And then what they're proposing to do to redivide that land is by 3 CSM, 3 Certified Survey Maps. The first CSM is, they've titled the Cross Point CSM. And lot 1 here would be the future location of part of campus number 4 and part of campus number 5. That was the proposed zoning for that would be SI, suburban industrial, which matches what's what the existing EPIC lands are currently zoned. There's also outlot number 1 on the north. That is just it's an outlot, and at some point, you know, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that, but there's no proposed use for it. But the proposed zoning for that is also SI to be consistent with the adjacent land uses. For the Cross Point CSM, we also have lot number 2. There is no proposed use for that right now, but the proposed zoning on that is RA, rural agriculture, which is similar to the open space and open space lands that are currently within the EPIC campus. And then we also have outlot number 2, which they're proposing just as open space. Once again, there'll be a berm within here and also a bike path. The berm is shown here, and the bike path is running in the gray line to the south. So that's the first CSM. And the second CSM is what's called the EPIC CSM. That's taking the former EPIC plat and redividing it by a CSM. Once again, the lot number 1 will be part of campus 5, zoned SI, and then outlot number 1, this little sliver here, that would be zoned RA for open space, berming, and a bike path. And finally, the third CSM, which is the Meister CSM, lot 1 would be zoned SI, similar to the lands to the north and to the west, and that'd be part of campus 5. And then outlot number 1 would be the berming, once again, the open space and the bike path. And then outlot number 2, which is this one right here, that would be zoned RA and would just be open space. There's no use for that. It's just the remaining piece that would just remain open. And then outlot number 3 would be dedicated to the city for park purposes. Along with this, Meister Drive would be dedicated as well, connecting to 9 Mound Road, and would hook into the subdivision here, and also another access point here as well. Part of the process with this, as you've been aware, is there's been many informational meetings with neighbors and adjacent residents and people living in the area to kind of talk about the new alignment of the roadway and also talk about the concerns and issues they've had. EPIC has had many, I'm not sure how many, it was before I even got here, but numerous meetings talking about that. And that's how the berming came about. Residents in the area asked the property to be bermed. EPIC has agreed to do that. That's one of the first things that they will do before the roadway goes in. They'll berm that, and they've agreed to work with each individual property owner to talk about what their needs are, if they want just a mound of topsoil, or if they want to have some plantings in there. EPIC has agreed to work with those neighbors as well to help screen the future campus from their views. The process for this is actually a little bit longer because of the actual replat and road vacation. State statutes requires that if this goes forward, the Plan Commission would have to recommend to the council. The council would have to approve by resolution with a variety of conditions onto it. And at that point, the applicant would take that to circuit court. Circuit court would have to actually vacate the right-of-way and replat the lands. So if it goes forward with the council would act upon it, and that wouldn't be the final approval. It would then be taken to court. Once the court approves it, that's when the roadway would be officially vacated. That's when the lands would be actually divided. That's when the new lands would actually be zoned. So just when the council takes action, there's still another step in there with the courts that they would have to go through as well. Staff and the applicant and EPIC are still working out the details of an agreement regarding the use of this roadway while the new one is being reconstructed. That's a detail that we'll work out through some type of agreement that we'll be working on as this goes forward as well. So in a nutshell, what this is accomplishing, it's vacating part of Northern Lights. It's rededicating it in the southern location, and then obviously creating the variety of lots shown on here as well. And with that, I guess staff is recommending the Plan Commission review the items and provide the applicant feedback. And I'm happy to answer any questions too.
Mr. Heinzen?
One question, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but it would be helpful to know where, as I'm looking at the map that you have up right now, the Northern Lights Road and Nine Mound, are they supposed to come together again at some point, or will Northern Lights end up going all the way out to PD? And it's the stuff off the map that I would be helpful to have some sense of.
Mr. Gunlock?
Yeah, Northern Lights will go out to, will go all the way north to PD. And existing Nine Mound Road north of Cross Country will be cul-de-sac. So that there'll be a cul-de-sac up there, and the 4 parcels that are on that will come back to Cross Country Road to access Northern Lights to go back to the north, if they want to go north. Or come back to Northern Lights to come back down to Epic, or go down Nine Mound to come back into the city.
Mr. Linder?
I guess just have a general question first. So they're asking us to vacate the plat. Can't we see what they plan on proposing for that area before we decide if we want to vacate it?
Mr. Sayre?
Are you talking about Campus 5, I assume?
5 and 6.
Well, I'm not aware of 6. So they are thinking about doing Campus 5 in this area. The best, I guess I can put this on the screen.
And if we're comparing 2 different choices, you know, existing and what they propose, I think it'd make sense to know what they're proposing.
The general idea,
There's the road.
yeah, the general idea, they've shown some tunnels going into a possible ramp in this area. I mean, obviously plans, I haven't seen any plans for that campus. You know, besides the tunnels possibly going in there, that they're showing how that could work, you know, if and when that goes forward. I don't know if they're really, you know, it comes down, I guess, you know, from a staff standpoint, we look at it separately, but I guess it comes down to, from a Plan Commission standpoint, how you want to review it.
Why don't we? We always give the applicant an opportunity to speak. So is there anyone representing the applicant that wishes to speak at this point? Steve, I think if you don't mind, leave it there, and then we'll take the cordless mic. It's easier for the cameras to. I think it probably has to be turned on. Steve, can you try that one over there, Steve Heinzen, and see if that one works?
It's a challenge all around tonight.
I'm Steve Dickman from Epic again. Give you a little bit of background. I think Mr. Sayre gave us a good background. First of all, as most of you know, we've got quite a bit of land in both in the city and the town of Verona. But when you start taking a look at the land, you start seeing why we're interested in doing the replat. As Mr. Sayre mentioned, we own this. This is Outlot 3 and 4 of the original Epic plat that's involved. This is the eastern part of Cross Point, and this is the northern part of the Meister plat. In this drawing, the sort of tan area are lands owned by Epic. But this dashed line is the current urban service boundary. So just the fact that we have land doesn't mean it's currently developable. And for those of you who are familiar, this is the Sugar River, this is wetlands. The green are environmental corridors that run through these areas. And this crosshatched area are areas that we've already built upon. This is the farm campus, Campus 1, Campus 2, Learning Campus, Deep Space, and this is the area where Campus 4 would go. So once you cover all of those, the remaining areas that we could develop are in white, those areas. So assuming we continue to grow, and that's, as all of us know, that's not a sure thing, but assuming we continue to grow, and we're planning for the future, we're trying to figure out where do we go next. We don't own the land to the north, plus those of you who are familiar, there's a big lake right here, that's the old quarry. So going north has its own set of problems. Going west has its own set of problems. If Campus 4 goes in here, we're actually running out of land that we can develop. Plus, CARPC, as I think many of you know, in the original approval of urban services, limited us to 20% impervious surface on the site, which is, I think, the lowest permission ever granted by CARPC. So those are the constraints we're dealing with, and that's why some people ask, why are you interested in replatting these areas so that we could possibly develop in the future? And that's background on that.
Mr. Ritt?
I think perhaps to help Steve and Jack come together on this, if I'm understanding Jack's question, Steve, and in light of the meetings we've had thus far, and your folks at those meetings did a very good job explaining the same thing you did in terms of background. But if I heard Jack's question right, I think what he's getting at in terms of going forward is, can you show us what you're thinking for Campus 5?
We can show you.
Okay, great. That's, yeah.
We can show you in concept, because we haven't gotten we haven't gotten into the detail, and part of that's working with the neighborhood to work with what's acceptable as far as architectural design, massing, and so forth. So I'm going to have to talk in a little bit of generality. Give you a little bit of background. This is how the area is currently platted. This is the area where Campus 4 is going in. This is the eastern part of the Cross Point plat, and this is the northern part of the Meister plat, excuse me. So you can see what is currently platted. Here's Northern Lights. Here's Meister Road coming through. An assortment of single-family, duplex, and multifamily lots in this area. This shows, again, what Mr. Sayre showed, but with a little bit more detail. This is the area that we would be looking at if Campus 5 would come into fruition. It would be located in this area. Give you an idea, the distance from the closest house to what we'd anticipate the closest building is over 800 feet. The distance from this house to the road is 615 feet. And then we're talking about probably a minimum setback off of the right-of-way line in there of probably 100 to 150 feet inboard of that. We would also move the stormwater retention pond, which is here. We'd expand it and bring that down in this area. So again, we don't have any we aren't far enough in the process to show actual buildings or building placements, but we got very good feedback from the neighborhood as far as if buildings went in here, how they would be aligned to minimize the view, massing, height, light, and those are things that our architects would be taking into consideration, and EPIC would be taking into consideration as we design these. The other thing is, because of the topography change, with the berming, these buildings, the topography, this land drops off quite substantially, going from west to east. There's probably a 25-foot drop in elevation, maybe 30 feet from here to here, and from about, and maybe it's 20 feet from here down to here, which really helps from a view standpoint. To give you a feeling from the overlay, if you look at what our concept is, this is where the closest building would be to the neighborhood, which is really on the same, exactly the same lot where the currently platted multifamily lot buildings are. So that's what we're thinking. This shows how the current alignment, and this is what the proposed alignment would be. I can't get into specifics because I don't know. I can't tell you what I don't know.
Jack, any follow-up?
To me, I'd like to know what I'm vacating, or why I'm vacating this, to what it's gonna look like in the future. If you may not know now, I fully understand that, but I personally like to see why I'm vacating it.
The other thing is, again, this would, every building we would build here, should we build, would have to become before this body to get approved.
Right, well, I guess one of the things I'm getting at is that if, there's room for your Plum Campus 5 down towards the bottom, is there room for Campus 6 up there? If the road gets moved farther north, maybe you don't need to vacate some of the land that's currently owned by 4 milk cans.
Well, if
So that stuff hasn't
it
been
got
decided
moved
yet.
too far to the north, there'd be no need for us to buy the land.
That's exactly my point. We wouldn't need to vacate the existing zoning for that section if.
For this section.
Yes, I'm just saying theoretically that's correct.
It's theory, yeah. Right now, we're talking options. And as we're trying to plan for the future, we're trying to figure out what our options are. And it's pretty hard to put firm plans in place until we know what options we have.
My point is, it's hard to agree to vacate something if we don't know what we're vacating to.
Additional comments, questions? Mr. Lytle.
Mr. Gunluck, I know that there's been a traffic study done that may or may not be linked to this road realignment. Can you kind of, I know it may or may not apply here, but I think it'd be good background to understand how this may or may not help traffic flow, or what other things are being proposed to help the traffic flow through here.
Mr. Gunlock?
Well, the TIA there'll be a public information meeting for the TIA and the end of April.
Yeah, we were just discussing the timing of that earlier today. The draft of the TIA has been completed, was submitted to the Wisconsin Department of Transportation for comments. Those comments have been received, and I believe as of today they've been incorporated into the document. We'll be looking to schedule the public meeting on that TIA. I think the goal is to do that prior to the end of April, so that would take place prior to the Plan Commission considering this for the next review.
And then the TIA basically is indicating that to the north at PD, there'll be 2 left turn lanes up there, and it'll be a signalized intersection. It'll be 4 lanes down to Cross Country Road and just a little past Cross Country Road, with the majority of the traffic then coming from the north being siphoned off by Hubble Drive to take into this new Campus 4 parking structure. The TIA recommended that if Campus 5 is constructed and a parking structure there, that it be free flow in or tunnels, and they're proposing that on these drawings. To the south, off of 18151, the recommendation is that a second off-ramp bay or lane be constructed coming north. Some minor signal modifications at Verona Road, and then 2 lanes continued north into Epic and up to the farm campus. So that's in a nutshell what the major, what the TIA is basically saying.
One other thing we're looking at is rebuilding what we call Staff Park B, where you go into the Campus 2 ramp and north entrance into the Campus 1 ramp, is converting those into a free-flowing with tunnels in, tunnels out to make traffic flow better. The biggest challenge we have, and I think some of you know, is traffic in the morning. And because we have people come, you know, a fair number of people coming in about a 2-hour window, and there's about a 30 to 45 minute crunch where because of cars having to wait to make left-hand turns or stop signs or whatnot, you don't get the free flow. And we're looking at all possibilities to get free flow into our ramps. On outbound, we don't have nearly the problem, but if we have to meter cars, we'll meter cars coming out of our ramps versus having them all queued up at stop signs and so forth.
Mr. Lytle?
Just since I'm sorry if I'm asking dumb questions, and I think it's good to have kind of all the background out there. Mr. Burns, I know you all have participated in at least a couple community meetings, and that some of the issues that were raised with the original version of the Campus 4 and/or Campus 5 plan have been addressed. Can you kind of compare the reactions from the neighbors, and then also give me an idea of how many single-family lots are going to be impacted if this goes through? How many lots would be lost?
Mr. Burns?
Sure, yeah. And we do have additional information recapping some of the public meetings that have taken place, and we can certainly provide that to anyone on the Plan Commission that would need that information. But just in general terms, I think some of the major issues or questions that came up, certainly traffic and the impact on traffic within the area, the proximity of the buildings to the residential neighborhood, what the appearance of those buildings would be, items related to that, including the building placement, the lighting on the building, the amount of construction activity out there on the site, the concept of construction fatigue was discussed. I would say in addition to the traffic serving Epic's campus, also the layout and transportation connections within the neighborhood was an issue, and something was discussed of how you provide additional connectivity and different options for residents to be able to enter and exit the neighborhood without necessarily creating a situation where there'd be a pass-through for Epic traffic to shortcut through the neighborhood. There was a lot of discussion about the placement of the roadway, the berming, height, potential landscaping of the berming, of the areas that would be dedicated to the public. Just in general terms, I think that there were a lot of questions and concerns identified at the initial meeting. After the initial public meeting, Epic held a series of focus group meetings with neighbors. Based on that, had revised the plan. One of the major revisions was shifting the road alignment farther to the north to increase the separation, and additional thought and consideration about the berming. I would say that the latest public meeting, my sense from the people there is that people were in general more receptive to that revised concept than the original one, noting that traffic and some of the other issues in question still needed to be discussed. And as Mr. Gunlock and I had indicated, there will be another public meeting coming up specifically related to the traffic study and the recommendations from that study. As far as your second question about the number of single-family lots that would be impacted, I'm going off memory here, but my recollection is that it would be 46 single-family lots that are in the area that would be affected. And I can get the exact numbers and make sure that that's provided to the Plan Commission.
So with the likely loss of those lots with this replat, how close to build out does that make Meister as it currently exists?
Phase 6 of Meister would be the last remaining phase within the Meister subdivision. There are lots that are currently available within that Meister Phase 6, but there would not be additional phases beyond that, is my understanding.
Does anybody know roughly how many lots that is?
Tony?
I would estimate maybe 15.
Okay, I didn't know if we were talking 10 or 40 in it.
I'm sorry, 15 what?
Maybe 15 empty lots.
Available lots.
That are available right now.
Available right now?
Yeah.
Currently improved?
That
No.
could, yeah, that are improved, that could be built on, that are part of the current.
Available to be built on.
Yes.
Future or today?
Today.
Today.
Today. Around 25, plus or minus a couple hundred.
Okay. Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I just pulled up the numbers on the Meister plat, and for the portion that Epic is considering purchasing as part of this concept, there are 3 lots which are zoned for urban residential, which is our multifamily zoning classification. That would allow for up to 130 apartment units at the approved density. There's 15 mixed residential or duplex lots, which would be a potential of 30 duplex units. And then there's a total of 46 single-family lots. 25 of those would be community residential zoning, which is a minimum of 6,000 square feet per lot, and 21 which are neighborhood residential with a minimum of 8,000 square feet per lot.
Thank you.
Mr. Linder?
I just want to comment some of the other features here. You know, talking about Campus 4 a little bit, I think that's a great spot for it. I think that's really cool, really good that the campus is underground. I like the bike path around. It'd be nice if the bike path would catch up to cross-country 9 Mound area. Doesn't show it right now. It currently connects there.
Well, we'd have absolutely no problem connecting that. That's type of a detail.
Well, just giving you some feedback on what I saw.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Meister Drive connection to 9 Mound, I know the original plan was connecting to Northern Lights Road. This connects to 9 Mound. I think that's a benefit for the residents there, though. And right now, we're kind of landlocked in that spot, so I think that would be another benefit. And the berm is definitely improvement. I would love to see some pine trees type, you know, all year round green.
Oh,
type
absolutely.
tall
I mean,
trees,
we'll
taller the
work.
better.
We made the commitment, and that we'll certainly honor it. We'll work with the community as far as height of berms, shape of berm, vegetation, type of trees, whatever's best for you will work for us.
And the last thing I'd like to comment on is the connection now to what would happen possibly to PD. It looks like there's a bike trail going up there. I think that's great because that whole road is so busy at times. You couldn't ride a bike up there, you know, at times. So I think those are some of the real positives to this plan.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Horsfall?
Excuse me, Mr. Burns, I think also we should kind of figure out how many residential lots we lost when Cross Point was also changed over. You don't have to tell me now, just as part of the future.
Yeah, I was just going to comment, I don't have those numbers available immediately, but I can certainly provide those.
Right.
Other comments, questions? The other thing I was going to mention, and Bill talked a little bit about some of the neighborhood meetings, some that Epic hosted, some that the city hosted, the work groups and so forth. I just think it was a very good process that we went through. There were some concerns. You could certainly see the mood of the people changing as we went through the process. And what I saw from the last meeting was, I would say, overwhelming support for the project. So I'm hoping that you're getting enough feedback, the type of feedback that you're looking for this evening.
There's never too much feedback. And I think the way we come up with what's a win-win for the community, for the neighborhood, for Epic, is the communication. Bring the issues up. We listen, we react. We'll do our best to meet the needs of the neighborhood and the community.
Mr. Heinzen?
Sure. What kind of schedule do you have, or have you talked about with city staff to get these pieces in place?
Well, we'd like to be able to know what our options are, you know, to do this, you know, we would like to get the council approval in May, and then we've got to go through circuit court. Then we know what we're dealing with. As you can see, we're a little bit focused on Campus 4, but we are doing conceptual studies on building architecture now that are conceptual, but we have to look at how everything works. In the ideal world, we'd like to be able to come back to you later this year, and probably a sequential thing, assuming we continue to grow, and that's not a given. Come back to you and say, okay, this is where we think the parking structure would go. We'd love to be able to get, as Mr. Sayer mentioned, get the berming in, get the vegetation on the berm, get all that done, leave current northern lights in place, in operation, then build a new road, get that all in operation, and then we would start work on, assuming things were moving forward, start on the parking structure, and we'd come in sequentially again with the parking structure and then buildings.
Good question. Mr. Sayer?
One thing that I did not point out was any change to the site plan with the parking structure, the buildings, or even Campus 5, those all take public hearings. So there will be notice to the public because that it's amending that group development. And along with the replat, that also will be a public hearing as well for each one of those replats as well. So that we'll be notifying neighbors of that.
Seeing no additional hands, Mr. Dickman, we thank you. Thank you very much. We look forward to you coming back in the near future. We are on agenda item number 11, downtown plan update. Mr. Sayer?
City continues to work on our downtown plan. I think we hope to have a public informational meeting, I want to say in May, for some ideas that are kind of coming forward. So we are still working on it. It's still in the progress. Things are moving along nicely, and we hope to have something ready to go shortly. So just wanted to update the Plan Commission on that.
Any questions on that? Okay. North Neighborhood Plan, agenda item number 12. Mr. Sayer?
Another item that we're kind of long-term planning looking at is our North Neighborhood Plan. This actually went to the Plan Commission back in 2010, and it kind of stalled out because of the highway improvements up there. So those improvements now on County Highway M are now known, so we can incorporate those in the plan. And obviously with 9 Mountain Road and knowing what improvements are occurring there as well, we can incorporate those road improvements as well. So we're starting that process. Another item that we're looking at and meeting with the City of Madison on is at the intersection here of PD and County Highway M. The City of Rowan and the City of Madison have an intergovernmental agreement that runs till 2016 that kind of establishes our boundaries, and it also requires a large landscaping buffer in this area. My perspective on that is there might be a better way we can accomplish what they're trying, the goal in that. The goal for that was to ensure that both communities have a distinct separation between the two. And the idea back in 1996 or 94 was to have a large open green space. My thought on that was possibly talking to the City of Madison, seeing if there is some possibly some negotiation or some flexibility in that if we were to have a project in that area with high quality architecture, or if we established a theme in that area, that could possibly create that distinct separation. So we're having that conversation with the City of Madison. We hope to take this plan forward sometime this year, and then at some point probably go forward with a USA amendment as well.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Sayer on that? Mr. Lytle?
You ever considered a moat? Drawbridge?
Well, there are stormwater ponds planned in the area. So my concern when I saw it was I didn't want to see 300 feet of ponds or 300 feet of just grass. I thought, it's a prime intersection with the roundabout being there, with the high traffic volume. Let's try to, it's going to be commercial there probably, so let's try to encourage that instead of tucking it 300 feet back. So.
Thank you. Well, we have come to the end of the agenda. Just two things I want to mention. First of all, Mr. Sayer, I hope, I mentioned earlier that you've been here with the city since February 18th. Hopefully you're getting some rest, some relaxation, and certainly there's been a lot of work for you to do, and we greatly appreciate what you're doing for us.
Thank you.
Secondly, I think all of us know that this is Alderman Ritt's last meeting on the Plan Commission. And Steve, I've been thinking about this, and I don't want to offend any current or former members of the Plan Commission or the City Council, for that matter. There's no doubt in my mind that you've had more of a handprint on all these new facilities, these new buildings, these new projects that have been built in the city. I was elected mayor in 2006. I had the opportunity a few times prior to that to sit in on the Plan Commission for Mr. Volker when he was the mayor. Again, there's the leadership that you have shown is, it's just greatly appreciated. And every time I drive down the streets in the city of Verona and I see a new building, I think about Steve Ritt. And the work that you did on how facilities should be positioned, the appearance, the exterior, the landscaping, everything that goes along with the facility. Sometimes we had longer meetings because of that. That's okay. Sometimes, we heard complaints from the developers. That's okay. In the end, we always ended up with a better project. So on behalf of the residents of the city of Verona, I want to thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Steve. So with that is the conclusion of the meeting. We could have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Ritt. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Heinzen. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.